The FBI is now questioning current and former CIA officers as part of an escalating investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan, an intelligence assessment that concluded Russia interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election to help Donald Trump. According to a major Reuters report published on May 12, 2026, investigators are revisiting one of the most politically explosive intelligence controversies in modern American history, the creation of the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, commonly known as the ICA. That report, released shortly before Donald Trump took office for the first time, concluded that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered a broad influence campaign aimed at undermining public faith in the U.S. democratic process and boosting Trump's chances of victory over Hillary Clinton. Now, nearly a decade later, the FBI is re-examining how that report was created, who influenced its conclusions, and whether top intelligence officials, especially former CIA Director John Brennan, acted improperly during the process. Reuters reports that around a dozen current and former intelligence officials have already been interviewed by investigators. The FBI is specifically looking into whether Brennan made false statements to Congress during testimony he gave in 2023 regarding the intelligence assessment and the controversial Steele dossier. The Steele dossier has remained one of the most debated elements of the Russia investigation. Compiled by former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele, the dossier contained a series of explosive allegations about Trump's possible ties to Russia. Many of its claims were never fully verified, while some were later discredited or disputed. Critics of the original Russia investigation have long argued that the dossier contaminated the broader intelligence process and helped fuel years of investigations into Trump based on weak or politically motivated evidence. Brennan, however, has repeatedly defended his role. According to previous congressional testimony cited by Reuters, Brennan stated that the CIA resisted including the Steele material in the main intelligence assessment because analysts considered it unverified. Brennan claimed the FBI insisted that at least some reference to the dossier be attached in a classified annex accompanying the report. That distinction is critical because Brennan's defenders argue the core conclusions of the 2017 assessment did not rely on the dossier itself. And importantly, multiple investigations conducted over the years, including bipartisan Senate inquiries and reviews by special counsel Robert Mueller, concluded that Russia did in fact interfere in the 2016 election. However, the political battle was never really about whether Russia interfered. It became about whether U.S. intelligence agencies exaggerated evidence, mishandled information, or acted with political bias against Trump. Now, with Trump back in power, scrutiny of the investigators themselves has dramatically intensified. The Reuters report suggests that the renewed probe into Brennan is part of a broader effort by Trump allies to revisit the origins of the Russia investigation and potentially hold former intelligence and law enforcement officials accountable. Inside the intelligence community, the situation is reportedly creating significant tension. Some current and former CIA officials fear the investigation is politically motivated and designed to punish officials who were involved in investigations related to Trump during his first presidency. Others argue the investigation is legitimate and overdue, especially considering years of criticism surrounding surveillance applications, confidential sources, and the use of disputed intelligence during the original Trump-Russia inquiries. Reuters also revealed that changes have recently occurred inside the prosecution team handling the case. A veteran federal prosecutor who had reportedly been overseeing aspects of the Brennan investigation was removed and replaced by Joe DeGenova, a longtime Trump ally and outspoken critic of Brennan and the Russia investigation. That personnel change immediately raised eyebrows in Washington because DeGenova has spent years publicly accusing intelligence officials of misconduct related to Trump. Critics say appointing someone with such strong pre-existing opinions risks turning the investigation into a political weapon. Supporters argue the opposite, that previous investigators were too protective of intelligence agencies and unwilling to seriously examine possible abuses of power. Another important detail in the Reuters report involves grand jury subpoenas. Some subpoenas connected to the Brennan probe were reportedly withdrawn recently, which may indicate that investigators are changing strategy, narrowing their focus, or reconsidering legal options. At this stage, Brennan has not been charged with any crime. But Reuters notes that if prosecutors eventually pursue charges related to false statements or misleading Congress, the case would likely move forward in Washington, D.C., where Brennan's congressional testimony took place. The stakes here extend far beyond Brennan himself. This investigation strikes at the heart of one of the most divisive political conflicts in modern American history, the fight over the legitimacy of the Russia investigation and the role of U.S. intelligence agencies in domestic politics. To Trump supporters, this may be viewed as long-awaited accountability. Many conservatives have argued for years that intelligence officials unfairly targeted Trump, selectively leaked information, and helped create a narrative of collusion that damaged his presidency. To Brennan supporters and many former intelligence officials, however, the new investigation represents something far more dangerous. An attempt by a returning Trump administration to retaliate against political enemies and rewrite the history of Russian interference. The timing is also important. Trump's return office has already triggered major personnel shifts across federal agencies, especially within the Justice Department and national security institutions. Several officials associated with prior Trump investigations have reportedly faced internal reviews, removals, or reassignment. That broader context is fueling fears that Washington is entering a new era of political retaliation between rival administrations. At the same time, Trump allies insist these reviews are necessary because powerful institutions were never fully held accountable for mistakes made during the Russia probe era. The original 2017 intelligence assessment itself remains historically significant. It represented the combined judgment of the CIA, FBI, and NSA, although analysts reportedly debated aspects of confidence levels and sourcing during the drafting process. The assessment concluded with high confidence that Putin personally ordered efforts to influence the election. That finding reshaped American politics for years and led directly to multiple congressional investigations, the Mueller probe, impeachment battles, and deepening distrust between political factions in the United States. Now, nearly 10 years later, investigators are effectively reopening the debate from the opposite direction, asking not whether Russia interfered, but whether intelligence leaders themselves crossed legal or ethical lines while responding to that interference. And that is why this story matters so much. Because this is no longer just about 2016. It is about whether America's intelligence institutions can remain trusted in an era of extreme political polarization. It is about whether future administrations will use federal investigative powers against former officials. And ultimately, it is about whether the United States can separate national security investigations from partisan political warfare. For now, the FBI investigation continues. Interviews are ongoing, and John Brennan remains under intense scrutiny. But regardless of whether charges are ever filed, the political and institutional consequences of reopening the Russia investigation debate are already reshaping Washington once again.